We're gonna go half soft plastic, half wood today. We're gonna cut this bad boy out real quick, shape it. Every omitted space that you'll see would be shaded, and we're going to be able to screw in this grub tail to give it a little bit of a kick action and hopefully make it heavy enough that it sinks pretty quick. So let's give it a shot. Hopefully it works out the way we want it to, but I'm gonna get to cutting, shaping, sanding, and we'll see how we can make this work. First thing is we're just gonna work with the width and get it to try to be equal, so it's almost a perfect square, which is just about a half of an inch on each side after I had that measured down. So we're gonna work this part through. Alright, rough shape's done. Since I don't have a power sander, belt sander, or any other power cutting devices, I might use my Dremel to get through some of this stuff. And then we're going to just shave off the edges, try to make it squared off first, and then we'll curve it all out after that. So let's try that out. We're just going to use the Dremel and a pretty coarse sandpaper bit to try to knock out some of these edges. So let's see how it works. Very rough shape thanks to the Dremel, but it's going to work for now. So all I am going to need to do from here on out is start with the sanding. I am going to make this semi-square, which would be a perfect square if I had a belt sander or a nice saw, but I don't. So we are going to sand it down, round that edge, continue that round edge to the front, and then start to work with, we'll have a lead hole down here in the front for the weight, some hardware for a treble hang off, and then we're going to have to screw out the this back area, and so we can fit the grub tail. So let's get to work on sanding. Quick tip, so while I sand all of this by hand, biggest thing that I've learned is just continue to rotate the wood so that way that the edges will smooth themselves out to the point where you can kind of see it and kind of figure out where you need to work on from there. Some areas will get a little sand heavy if you just do one side at a time, so constantly move the bait around the piece of wood. That way you can kind of really see what edges need more work, and then that helps as you progress. So I will be working on this for a little bit, and I'll come back to you when I need to work with cutting out some holes and drilling the hardware. Pin it down. Now I've got some markings on here. This is where we're going to put the lead hole, or my makeshift lead hole. I'll show you that in a bit. This will be the hook hardware. This will be cut out for the, or we're going to put the grub, and then we'll drill another hole just for a line tie. So we're going to just start with the rear portion, and I'm going to try to be as cautious and careful with it as I can. And we're just going to use the Dremel bit and kind of carve that little area out. Got the first part pretty much done. It's a pretty good size hole there that's going to allow for some space for our plastic grub paddle tail. So next thing we need to do, we're going to carve out just that slot, the whole area for the weight and the lead. So here we go. Lead weight portion done. The rear portion where we'll insert that plastic tail is finished. So the last two things we're going to do with this Dremel are drill out a line tie hole for the front and a hook hanger hole angled in at about 40 degrees from right there. And then we're going to get to inside here, which you can't see. We're going to have to put a almost like a spring tie, so that once we put these grubs in, or the paddle tails in, so that they can stick. So you'll rotate these in. So a 3/64 inch bit now in the Dremel. This is a pretty tiny one, but it's just gonna basically allow me to get the hook hanger and any of the additional hardware in for the first portion. So first one is I need to drill a center hole down here in this cavity. That way I can take these paddle tails or any of the tiny swim baits, grub tails that we're going to use, and that way we can spin them in to secure them with a small wire. Then again, we're going to angle in our hook hanger one there at about 45 degrees, 40 degrees in the wood. That way I can secure that soundly. Last one in there will just be the front line tie. So we'll start inside the grub, or inside the cavity for the paddle tail secure. You can see down in there, we've got ourselves a nice center hole for our stability wire. Next, we're going to come in at an angle again and knock out these additional pieces for hook hanger and line tie. There's our hook hanger. And there's our line tie. So that part, for the most part, is good. The hook hanger's a little off kilter, but we can fix that once we have the actual hooks in, or the hanger in. And now we're just going to go and start working on the wires for the inside. Got myself a little screw tie right here that is simply, we're just going to place in there down and we'll glue that in here shortly. I went ahead and put in the hardware. Realized my camera had died a little late, but so you're going to see the screw tie in here, hook hanger there, and line tie there. So I don't have a lead melting pot. Again, I live in an apartment for the time being, so what I did is I basically just mashed and formed an old split shot, and then I'm going to use baking soda and super glue to secure that in right now. So let's go ahead and get that moving and start that process. Go ahead and seal the rest of the wood. I ran out of the super thin super glue, so we're using some classic Gorilla Glue from, so that's not working as well, but I'll just sand that part down anyway, so it's not a problem. got it all sanded down. It's pretty clean, weighted pretty good. I've tested it just a couple of times just in my bathroom sink, and it does sink, which is kind of what I'm hoping for, just so that this bait can get down and in between the grass lines and wherever I end up fishing. But I think from a coating standpoint, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this aluminum foil tape. I'm going to make a scale pattern on it by pressing this netting into it, and then we're going to cover the sides with that aluminum foil tape to give it a little shine, and then I'll probably go with more like a gizzard shad or an American shad, threadfin shad, some type of shad. Look to it for a paint afterwards. So I'm going to show you how to do this aluminum foil technique. This is just your basic aluminum foil tape, and I just cut it to about this size so we can get two of them on there. And so you're just going to kind of want to basically take some sort of object that you can press in. This is no fancy way, just a Sharpie. I'm just going to use a lot of my force and pressure from my wrist and arm and roll that pattern into the tape. And it won't be perfect, but it's just going to give it a little bit of texture, and that texture is going to help reflect that light, and it'll look pretty sharp. So from there, we're just going to fold this in half. And cut out this rough shape. Feel like I'm in elementary school again, working with scissors and cutting lines, but there we go. Got two pieces, two sides. We'll have to adjust them because that was the original, so we're going to cut those down, but we'll place those on shortly. There we go. That looks pretty sharp. You can see the scale pattern on that foil tape. Just gives it a little extra texture and character. So painting, we're gonna go with the shad, so most likely base coat white in the bottom, pearl silver, pearl aluminum, base coat white on the top, and then some sort of brown to green to blue transition mixture of colors just to try to give it a little natural, and then a nice shad dot, and then we'll work with eyes, and we'll get that soft plastic tail in there and we'll be almost done. I'm actually going to try something new. Even though I said I was going to go shad-like, it might still be shad-like, but it's going to be a little different. So we're going to go white primer on the bottom, then come in with some pearl eyes, silver, and some aluminum, a mixture of both, and try to just clear that up and clean it up. Black base coat on the top, and then we're going to try these color shift paints that I just got not that long ago. So this one is going to be Celestial Azure. You can't say it right, yeah. But we're going to try that on the top and give it a little color change, and we'll see what it looks like. But first things first, we're going to go to the bottom, base coat it with white, and then our primer with white, and go from there. All right, base coat and aluminum silvers down, or excuse me, pearlized silvers down. One thing I'll show you and tell you, when you use any sort of foil tape, obviously an airbrush is going to coat a pretty large area of your bait, unless you have one of those super fine Iwatas. This particular side I've cleaned off, so basically if it looks a little bit more reflective, it is. So the paint will obviously overspray, and if that becomes an issue and you don't want your aluminum tape or your aluminum foil tape to get kind of cloudy, you just want to wipe it off after you get finished with that particular section, so you can kind of see the difference. Hopefully this one's much cloudier, isn't as reflective. This side is much stronger with the light. So I'm gonna wipe off the other side. You just take anything, you know, this is just a general t-shirt that I use to clear my airbrush on both sides, and just kind of wipe down that area that you still want to keep very reflective, very bright, and it'll keep you. Next piece, we're going to go to the top, and if you've never used color shift paint before, especially this one from Green Stuff World, the idea is you always have a dark base coat. You can try it with a dark green or dark blue, and it's going to kind of give you a different look, but I'm going to go with Wicked Black right now. If you do it with a white, it just doesn't show. So when you look at this paint in the bottle, you know, and when it comes out, it doesn't look the same. So it's very clear. The consistency, you can't really see much of a color in here, but once it gets onto your bait, once I focus it here, once it gets onto your bait, it's or anything that you're painting, it looks really neat. So we're gonna go with a black base coat on the top real quick, and paint it with this Celestial Azure on the top portions. Got the black base coat. I'm actually going to go ahead and just put the dots on the circles that you typically see on a shad. We'll do that quick before we get rid of the black in the chamber. Now, hopefully you can catch that on the light. It's going to have a really neat change of color. I see a lot of purple. It looks like the camera catches a lot of green, but the reality is it's going to come in pretty strong. Like I said, I probably used 3 drops of the actual paint itself, and we'll let that dry. I'll probably coat it a little bit more, and then we'll work with eyes. So sweet iridescent purple eyes that I'm just gonna go ahead and place on this one. I think they're pretty cool. We have this bait completed. I just need to clear coat it, and then clear coat it, and I'm going to add that twister tail. All right, we're at a local lake here, so we're going to test out the new lure, see how it works, check out the action, and hopefully we can get into a fish or two. So come along. All right, this is the maiden voyage of this thing. kind of see how it goes. I know there's a ton of bass in this lake. A lot of bedding bluegill at the moment too. You can't see them, but they're right here. So if this doesn't work out super well, or if we don't seem to be getting anything, then we're going to switch into something small and knock out some of these panfish. So let's see how this bad boy works. First, we just need to make sure it sinks a little bit and then gives me some feather action, which, man, that's perfect. Bass cruising right in front of me, so we'll see if we can get his attention. Oh, there we go. Didn't expect it not to be a bass, but that is a tank of a panfish. I probably should have super glued that in, but man, woo, look at that. Not a graceful release, but a release nonetheless. All right, let's try number 2. Take 2. This time I'd like to get a picture of one, so see if we can get one out there and get out of there. Well, he swam right into the damn thick. Oh, it's a nice one though. Yep. Not a great fight for you, but I'll find out where he is. Here we go. Nice bass to finish out the day. Well, I have to record the outro on my truck. I thought I had footage on this camera, on the big camera, of my last bass, but that's all right. I think I got it on the GoPro, so I'll throw it in there. Thanks for watching. I learned a little bit from that lure. Didn't sink as fast as I want, even though I put a pretty good amount of weight. I'll have to double check the weight of the lure itself plus the weight. I can add some lead golf tape just to make it a little smoother and dive a little deeper, but that's why we do this, just to learn a little bit, see if I can figure out more and better ways to make these things. So thanks for joining me. If you can, hit that like button below, subscribe. Like I said, we'll catch you in the next one.